So we're going to go through the project intake process in a linear way. So you would standardize the process. We'd create this submission form. You're looking at our sort of out-of-the-box best practices 120 way of doing it. But of course, we can make modifications. So this is the way that people throughout the whole company become standardized on creating a project request. So the first part of it, pretty standard. Project names and descriptions, and I'll just kind of do some of these very quickly. Who submitted them? Who is the sponsors? If there's a difference between executive sponsors and project sponsors, we can accommodate that, obviously. Self-assessed priority, right? Budget estimates, and these could obviously be tuned based on the size of the projects that your organization gets and when you would like to start it. Most people will, of course, choose today. And if the funding is already secured, which departments are the recipient, the benefit, the requester, etc. And then here is something that you'll find throughout all of the 120 VC ways of working, all of the components of how to create a world-class PMO. We integrate our best practices, our decades of experience showing organizations, helping organizations how to really get stuff done that really matters. So we bring in not just the standard, how much does it cost and who's the sponsor, but we generate demand and we really make sure that we're channeling people and users to really challenge themselves and think about the best way to create projects that have the most benefit and value for the organization. So we call it the Challenge Opportunity Quiz, and we ask the hard questions. What's the real problem, and what are you really trying to solve? And what are the changes in outcome? How will this change impact the organization and community, et cetera? So we're trying to evolve people, not only into a standardized project intake system, but take them beyond, we want to do this, and it costs this much, and we want to start a project then. Great, but that doesn't really tell us, it doesn't really channel us into thinking and determining if we're really doing the right project at the right time. So once the form is completed, the user clicks submit. From there, the team that then manages and shepherds the projects through the process get an updated email notification. There's various sort of notifications that can be generated by the system, and it adds that new entry automatically to the bottom of this list. This list is the entire history of all of the projects that have been submitted from the inception of making this your intake system. So you have a great historical record, and you'll notice that all of the fields, basically it's a one for one, all of the fields that were generated through the intake form are here. The challenge opportunity questions, what the system does after submission, it allows the reviewer or the team that's considering these projects to come up with a scoring system for it. From there, it generates a prioritization score, and we put some conditional formatting in such that we'll give a green to the ones that score higher overall. Notice here there are different statuses. This is important because of the way we're going to show how this outputs onto a dashboard and how you can in real time keep track, executives, anybody, of what's going on for all the projects that are working their through the intake process. Once a new project has been submitted, we mark at first the project in a newly submitted status. And then there are different statuses that can be moved on through the life cycle. So this system sort of envisions a two-prong approval process. So after the initial submission, you can either decline it or advance it to executive review. If it's pretty good, hey, let's get this in front of the executive team. And then finally, after the executive review, they may choose to decline it or approve it. And if it is approved after executive review, in the workflow we imagine, it becomes then a project that PMO or whoever the team that sort of owns the project executions will take it and run it. So again, the team that is working the levers and managing the projects as they're coming in, project requests as they're coming in all through the organization, this is their sort of working sheet. And they're the ones that will review the project, probably do the scoring of the challenge opportunity quiz, and then they will shepherd the projects through the process. So this is the working sheet that this team, the intake review and management team, is working. But it's not particularly user-friendly. It's not a particularly executive-friendly view. There is a dashboard that's tied to this that makes it incredibly easy and efficient for executives, other members of the organization to understand at a glance what's going on with all of the projects that have been submitted, declined, approved, in process through the intake system. And that dashboard looks like this. Anything that's ever been submitted through the project intake tracker, you can find and you can drill in and get details for in this dashboard. But what we've done is we've made it much more sort of in-process focused. Yes, it's great to know that there have been 217 all-time rejected projects and 119 all-time approved projects, and that's great, and you can access and get information about all of that. But I think what's most relevant, I think what people are probably most going to use this dashboard for, is to understand what's going on with the ones that are currently in process. And what we're defining as currently in process is projects that are either newly submitted, right? In other words, they've just gone through and entered the form, hit enter, and no one's really done anything with them yet, or the ones that have been initially reviewed and have been advanced to the executive review process. And those are presumably going to get on the calendar with the executive team. So what you can do in any of these graphs here is you can drill in. Okay, and this says, okay, great. Well, these are the ones that are advanced onto executive review pending, their final approval or rejection, or these are the ones that have come in yet. And yeah, great. They just haven't been initially processed. And then what we're doing, because it will be assumed at the point in which we have advanced something to the executive review, note that we have generated the challenge opportunity aggregated scoring methodology, and we've given the color coded just to help the eye understand the ones that are potentially more likely to be approved. We will do a real-time demo so you can understand just how interactive and just how quick you can get through keeping this dashboard bookmarked on your page, what's going on in real time for the status of all these projects. So let's imagine here, again, there are 2 projects, looks like, that are newly submitted and 8 that are in the pending executive review stage. So what we'll do is we'll envision that one of the newly submitted ones, notice that both 2 are right up on top here, we're going to decline. We can save that. And then, let's say this project 7 looks great. So we'll say this has been approved. So what we see now when the graphs update is there's no longer 10 projects in process because we've moved 2 to their final state. 1 rejected and 1 approved. And by the way, notice that these numbers have also moved up as well. You can drill into any of these. For example, if you wanted to look for the rejected projects for whatever reason, 33 was the one that I just rejected, so great, now I have that there. In addition, there are reports within this dashboard where to come back up and take a look at some of this other good stuff. Just right there in front of you where you can look at the all-time approves, all-time declines after the executive reviews, and then all-time declines after initial reviews. Those are the 3 sort of final statuses. These are the 2 in-process statuses, the newly submitted, now there's only 1 of those, and then the 7 that have been initially approved and pending the executive review. We slice the data up in several different ways for both the in-process projects and also the all-time. So for example, of the now 8 projects that are in process, maybe you're curious about different sort of budgets that are associated with each of them. So we'll show that. So of the 8, we have 4 that are in this medium range, 3 that are in this extra large range. You can also look at them by the sort of self-assessed priority. So, okay, maybe, gosh, let me just see what's going on with the projects that are currently in process that have been designated high priority. Any of these charts, we've built a drill-in component. So you can drill in and you could get some information about the project description, and you could see like the scoring, when these people would like to start at which department, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Whatever you want to pull into these reports. Beyond that, we allow people to look at things by which department is requesting or who's the beneficiary department of the project. I've worked and I've led project management organizations where this has revealed some very, very interesting things. For example, at one company, we determined after a while when we put a system like this in that something like 95% of the projects that had been requested over the past 2 years had all come from one department, and that one department was responsible for generating about 5% of the revenue. It's very difficult sometimes to ascertain things like that when you're running an intake process, unfortunately, like a lot of companies are, where people maybe are just emailing requests to different people or sort of saying, we need to do this kind of project in a meeting. And there really isn't any sort of organized, easy way to kind of understand where the projects are coming from and who they're impacting. In addition to the in-process breakouts, it's the same sort of data set, but this time by all time. So this is like basically your all-time historical thing. So we have something like 33 that we've generated here. You can get a sense as to what the rough amount of money is, right? Per the example I just gave, historically, who's requesting the different projects, what the all-time prioritization score was. And then the final part of this, again, is what we already looked at, which is just to break out detail of historically, what's currently in process. And then, of course, as you move the projects through the process and something becomes approved or declined, it'll leave these groups and then appear in these groups. So in effect, that is 120 VC's best practices project intake system. It's doing a few things. It's centralizing all of the projects that are being requested throughout the organization down to, if you will, one sheet of paper. It is also providing real-time updated statistics based on where the projects are in the process and what are the all-time historical trends and data points associated with the ones that have come through. Most importantly, perhaps, the challenge opportunity, right? We're not just taking orders. We're not just saying, this is what I want to do, this is how much it costs. We're generating demand, and we are ensuring that not only can you track and look at the projects in real time, but that we're selecting the right projects for the organization to succeed.